So you want to jump from corporate C-suite to CEO or owner. Many people dream about leaving their corporate world behind and becoming their own boss. However, the transition from employee to CEO owner can be challenging, and there are several pitfalls to be aware of before you take the plunge. People often concentrate on the known unknowns. Things like effective hiring. You always want to make sure you get the best people. Training your staff. You want to make sure that they're knowledgeable about your business and products. Buying equipment. You want to make sure you get the most value for money. Paying bills. You know you have your taxes, your maintenance, different things to pay every month. And ultimately, the anxiety of terminating someone's employment. Yeah, you're going to have to do that too. But there are some unknown unknowns that people are normally caught off guard with. And these are a few to catch your eye. Let's get it. The biggest thing is thinking that they have the requisite skills of running a business because they ran a department or maintained a business before. Oftentimes, this is not the case. The first step is to work out what you're good at, but more importantly, what you're bad at. This is normally the Achilles heel for the corporate executive C-suite persons that wish to open their own business, because they have to come to the immediate realization that they're not as smart as they think they were. And that hit to the ego is often rejected because to get to this point where they are in their career, they had to be smarter and sharper than the majority of their competition. So they rationalize it with the famous statements like, well, I saw him doing it. Of course I can do it. I think I'm smarter than him. What they have is the ability to manage that business, but lack awareness of the infrastructure of how the business actually works, the actual plumbing of the business, the reason why that company decided to move into that office building, the idea behind that copier brand, or why they chose to lease those trucks instead of purchasing them outright. The context of why something is done is often not considered because they probably are not aware of the opportunity costs of doing it a different way. Number two, the management style. They often think or assume that because they were managing people in the corporate world, it transfers into the same thing when they have a business. The issue is, in the corporate world, the customers and your employees know the buck normally doesn't stop with you. You can always blame it on the business policy, upper management, the CEO, the owner, someone. So with that being said, people interact with you differently on a social standard. Even though you might be the same and may have the same amount of subordinates, it doesn't operate the same. Remember, running a smaller operation with intention to scale is more difficult than running a giant operation with intentions to maintain what they have or just gradually increase market share. Also, the way you solve problems are different. In the management position, you're normally prioritized with whose fault it is. Middle management, upper management, C-suite, they always want to find whose fault it is and punish said fault. When you're the owner or CEO, fault is like the third or fourth thing down the line. Let me give you an example of what I mean by fault is third or fourth down the line. Recently, we had a situation where one of our clients ordered some products from us, 4 or 5 pallets, and they were to be delivered to a specific logistics company on a specific day. Say they ordered it on Monday and they wanted it delivered at a particular place on Friday. Now on Thursday, the person who they made the order with was out. And another CSR decided, because we normally send those products to those normal people on Thursday, they sent it out with the other shipments. Now the customer is calling, they're upset, they're trying to figure out what happened. And normally, middle management, upper C-suites, they try to identify whose fault it is to punish that person. When you're the owner, the first thing that you do is try to figure out how to maintain this customer. What is this exterior fire that we need to put out? Do we need to help them with logistics? Did it work out? What is the situation? Once that is fixed, then you come internal. Not to figure out whose fault it's for. You're trying to figure out how this could have happened. Was it a policy issue? Was it human error? Was it a technological issue? Like, what caused this to even be able to happen, right? Maybe it might be a mistake. Maybe all the information was there and someone just overlooked it and did what they did. Or maybe they asked for approval and the supervisor just approved it without looking at what the situation was. And if in fact it's one of those 3 things, you create a SOP, a standard operating procedure. You create that to make sure this doesn't happen again. Why do you do this? Because if you were busy punishing the person whose fault is for, It could be happening in a different department, a different country, or a different area right now. So the first thing you need to do is shore up your operations. And then maybe third or fourth, you figure out, well, okay, this was an oversight. All the information was there. This person just didn't look at it. And then after that, you still don't punish, right? You try to incorporate more training. Number 3, realizing that you are the infrastructure. Once you become the owner, you quickly realize that the sun rises and sets with your actions. If you're a bad organizer, your business will adopt that trait. If you are nonchalant and carefree, your office will adopt that trait. If you're not meticulous, your office will adopt that trait. Infrastructure is the bare bones of the business. There are things that only the CEO and owner can do. For example, the type of insurance plan you plan to get or not because you think insurance is a scam. The types of people you do business with. The way you choose to procure those sales. Are you an honest business person? Do you bribe and blackmail people? Like, whatever you do is gonna seep into your business. The verticals that you choose to expand your time into. For example, you are running a supermarket and now all of a sudden you want to sell trained attack dogs to the government. Either way, the ideas that you put your attention and priority into is what's going to change the trajectory of your business. Oftentimes, people come from a stable environment where they have to keep propelling forward. And one of the biggest shocks that we see is that they realize when you have a business, it's kind of a build it as you fly. And they become uncomfortable with having serious anxiety because their decisions determine whether they fly or crash. There is no backstop. There's no higher power. Out here, you know what we say? You eat what you kill. Now, before I get into number 4 and 5, if you're enjoying it, give this a like, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone that may need this information. Number 4, making decisions towards status. Oh my God, this happens all the time. This is more common with the persons that have started a business on the side and still maintaining their regular career. And it's making successful decisions in their business is thriving. So they develop this hubris about how a successful business person is supposed to look. They immediately tie their self-worth to the success of the business, and it all goes downhill from there. Trying to keep up with an image or trying to outdo people that have been in business for 30 years with your 3-year earnings is probably not going to end well for you. I have a friend about 8 years ago that asked me for advice. They were having some money troubles in their business. I listened to him and I immediately told him, you need to scale back your lifestyle. No more buying drinks for groups. No more fancy car. You need to sell that Range Rover. Rent your house, get a smaller apartment. He told me I was crazy. He told me he would try harder to get more clients. But I can see that it was a dying business. Imagine selling DVDs and you can see that streaming services are coming around the corner. Yeah, it was that bad. When I explained it to him, he eventually came around and admitted to me that he was worried that the people in his life wouldn't respect him if he didn't have what he had or had the same level of status that he had. I said, bro, they don't care. Just like if you lose it all tomorrow and you're in debt, they'll probably move on with their life. Protect you and your family. Leave that image behind. So he sold the house in 2017, sold the Range Rover, and stopped partying as much. In 2017, mid-year, we all had a life-changing Category 5 hurricane that disintegrated all of our businesses. Everything in the country was flat. Guess who had enough excess money and freedom of mobility to move around to another country and invest in a new life? Yeah, the same friend. Now, I'm not saying to depend on a hurricane to have you realize to cut back on your expenses, but you have to have good risk management in business. And we all take risk in business, right? Sometimes markets change and the business that you are in is no longer viable. That doesn't mean that you're a failure or a bad business person. It just means that the opportunity is finished. It's time for another. Don't base your self-worth on that tangible asset. As a matter of curiosity, drop in the comments below if you know someone that has a full-time job and using their paycheck to subsidize that business that they have because they can't bear to tell their friends and family that the business is a bust. Number 5, anxiety around the lack of mobility. This doesn't seem like it would be a big one, but it really is. According to the type of business, it's like putting down roots. A lot of persons working in the corporate C-suite world, often with high-paying jobs, they jump from company to company. They often go on websites, do interviews, trying to find out who has the best benefit package, who has the best perks, and they're used to this life. It's a regular thing in that culture. They know they can get another job if terminated in the same field, or if they get just too tired with doing the same thing, it's monotonous, they just switch to a different company with a different culture in the same field. And it's a shock to the system when you open a business in that very field. It's like putting down an anchor. It may not be tied to a physical location, but it's tied to a physical idea. Once you make that commitment, you can't move around as often, and your decisions are things you have to live with. Especially if you are to secure financing from investors or banks, traditional financing, whatever it is, you have extra liabilities and extra responsibilities to make sure that you can't move around as often. That's why we see a lot of people from professional corporate businesses open businesses, and then after like 2 years, they're right back in the corporate world because they need that structure, which is fine. Everyone is not the same, and you have to identify your weaknesses. They need that flexibility where they can get another job, 20% more, and maybe they can take it. If Sally's not behaving correctly, they can banish Sally to the basement somewhere and never speak to her again. But when you open that business, you have to deal with Sally and her ignorance every day. Whether it's directly or indirectly, you have to deal with it. So let's recap. Number 1, not having the requisite skills. Number 2, the management style infused with social dynamics. 3, you are the infrastructure. 4, status decisions. Short-term decisions lead to long-term problems. And 5, lack of mobility. In summary, making the jump from the corporate world to being a CEO owner can be fulfilling and rewarding experience, but it's important to be aware of the potential pitfalls. Make sure you're prepared for the added responsibility, have financial plans in place, and a supporting network to make sure that they can hold you accountable. And now that you have ideas of some of the unknowns that might catch you off guard, now you can do something about it. My name is Sinclair Fleming. Now, go take action.